Okay, so let's start off with this book. I bought this book probably 2001. It came out in 1999. And it's called The Curse of Louis Pasteur. Have you ever seen this book before? Okay, it's probably the pinkest book ever. But I read through it, and I still have the notes when I read through it, whatever, how many years ago. And I got the little tabs right there. And as I was reading through these notes this morning, I was trying to form a lecture. Right here at the top is this history lecture. What this is talking about is guys that discovered organisms that did not meet the standard description of what organisms were, meaning bacteria, fungus, etc. And they gave different names, and I created a slide about it. And I'm going to get into this more, but here's the deal. So the topic of this is about nanobacteria. So these are teeny tiny bacteria, like 25 to 200 nanometers big. And so these nanobacteria I've been studying for over a year because they are a cause of heart disease and calcification of the arteries and calcification of like kidney stones, gallstones, and decrease of fluidity in the body. So if you see somebody who's older and they walk like this and they take steps very slowly and they're careful with their arms and they're just slower and they can't turn their neck, their body is turning into stone. And nanobacteria cause that. And so about a year and a half ago or more, somebody contacted me about a supplement that fixes that. And I had been studying ketosis for a number of years before that, and ketosis makes the body fat fluid, and fat makes you mobile. And the opposite of fat is sugar, and sugar is sticky, and sugar makes it dries your body out. So you want to reverse that by getting into ketosis and making your joints fluid and making your arteries fluid. And it also, ketosis also pulls the fat out of your arteries and your organs. And the first bit of fat that gets metabolized is in your torso. So your fatty liver disease goes away, your pancreas becomes less fatty, that reverses diabetes. Okay, but let's talk about nanobacteria as described in modern times. There's research on this in PubMed, and there's a website, and I have the resources here in these slides. So another name for the nanobacteria is calcifying nanoparticles, CNP. Okay, so calcifying nanoparticle. So some people call it a nanoparticle as opposed to nanobacteria because it's questionable whether or not it's alive. It could be like not alive. So the second bullet point there says contagious. It is contagious, and it is not alive. Its metabolism is 10,000 times slower than E. coli, meaning that it replicates every 3 to 6 days, which is an eternity, especially at that size. So viruses or bacteria can replicate in seconds or minutes. So you catch a cold, like there it is in the throat, and then within a few hours it's like all over. It's because it replicates so fast. It's the smallest known self-replicating infectious pathogen. It's too small to be seen by regular microscopes. That's why it was missed for so long, especially in conventional labs or university labs or a microscope at a doctor's office. Discovered in modern times in 1998 by two Finnish people. Kahander seems to be the guy in charge of all that. I need a laser pointer. It might be in that red bag. It has been proposed that calcifying nanoparticles may be formed under physiological conditions of blood or serum as mineral low protein complexes during certain alterations in homeostasis within normal limits, and consequently they cannot be live objects. So it's like a mineral and a protein complex, and it forms when you're weak. That's what that means. Under certain alterations in homeostasis within normal limits. You're just weak, you're just tired, you just ate too much sugar. That's when these things form. They form like that proverbial
mud puddle where the lightning strikes and then you got bacteria, you know, like the how life supposedly was formed. That's what this is. So earlier discoveries, this is kind of small, sorry, but there's a guy named Gunther Enderlein. He died in 1968. He found these, and he called them endobiots. And another guy named Gaston Naessens, he called them somatids. Royal Rife, he was a master optician, and he had this huge microscope as big as a room that you didn't even have to plug into the wall. It took natural light and it amplified it. And he said that they were turquoise. He called them turquoise bodies or turquoise granules. He also called them pinpoint cells. And he said they can pass through filters capable of blocking any microbe larger than a virus. All right. And then Antoine Béchamp, he was Louis Pasteur's nemesis in France. Antoine Béchamp called them microzymas, or little bodies. And he said they ferment. So back then in the 1800s, they're discussing whether or not fermentation was caused by like an external bacteria, sort of animal type thing, or did it come from within? And Béchamp said that it comes from within. He also coined this term pleomorphism. So what that means is you have an organism that changes. So pleo means many, morph means shape. And it's kind of like a tadpole turning into a toad, or a moth or a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. It's the same animal, but a completely different shape and a completely different environment. So the caterpillar is on the ground or on a stick, and there's a butterfly that's in the air, or a tadpole's in the water, and then the frog is on land. So pleomorphism. Wilhelm Reich found these too. He called them bions. He said they were transitional vesicles lying midway between life and lifeless, or the animate and inert. He said they were a strange blue color. Thanks. Walter Cannon found them. He called them cells that could go dormant. He said they're harmless but could change, pleomorphism, and cause disease in a weakened state out of homeostasis. So all these people said the same thing in a different decade, over 130 years. Other terms would be Cryptocytes primordialis and progenitor Cryptocytes. Can you grab a test kit, one of my test kits? Not the organs one, but the other one. You know, just grab the two yellow test kits. All right, Claude Bernard, he's a physiologist from the 1800s. He said fermentation is from a soluble, lifeless ferment. So he was onto it too. He said whatever's fermenting alcohol or fermenting fruit, it's lifeless. Thanks. I made these test kits when I do the muscle testing procedure. And these are all my terms and the vials I made. Are you guys familiar with muscle testing? Okay, good. So this one right here is Cryptocytes primordialis. Like I made this based off of what these people were saying from this book. So when somebody's really sick, I'll find this one. But if somebody just has a cold, I'll find virus. Or if somebody has fungus, I'll find fungus. But when somebody has some like chronic illness that's severe, it could be progenitor Cryptocytes. So I made this, to find these almost lifeless protein/mineral organisms that ferment. Okay, I also have macrobes and microzyma. These are terms that come from this book. Okay. So in modern times, calcifying nanoparticles were discovered by accident by this Finnish researcher, Nobel Prize nominee, Kahander, MD, PhD, as a contaminant of mammalian cell cultures. His cell cultures kept routinely dying after a period of time. He investigated further and discovered it was these CNPs infecting his cell cultures and killing them through the process of cellular apoptosis, which means cell death. Kahander called them nanobacteria because they were nanometer sized. So calcifying nanoparticles utilize serum calcium and LDL cholesterol to manufacture pathological calcification deposits. under normal serum blood calcium conditions. So this is why people think that LDL particles are the cause of heart disease. And there's no research that shows that LDL is the cause of heart disease. But these nanoparticles form calcium around them. What they do is they create a film, a biofilm, an exudate that they put out, and it becomes calcified. And they use LDL as their food, and they oxidize the LDL. Oxidized LDL causes harm to your arteries. It causes like a trauma inside your arteries. All right, but LDL is not the cause of heart disease, but it's implicated in two ways. Number one, it feeds these nanobacteria, and number two, the LDL can be damaged by sugar from the high sugar standard American diet, and then that now it's called like an oxidized LDL that causes harm to the artery. But LDL is not the cause. Got that? That's super important. Okay. Prior to the discovery of these calcifying nanoparticles, science has not been able to explain how such calcification is possible. Previously, scientists just accepted the unexplainable disease-related calcification development in our bodies as a mysterious unknown phenomenon of aging. Now, I like to read old books in healthcare, meaning like going back 100 years. And in the 1950s, they just said it was a potassium deficiency. So like if you don't have enough potassium in your body, the calcium in relation to potassium goes too high. So then your tissues get stiff. And that makes sense. Like if your minerals are out of balance, you can get stiff just from that. But this goes deeper. And I think that they're both valid. Okay, so they're tough to kill in culture and in humans. They're extremely resistant to destruction, including penicillins, cephalosporins, macrolides, these are medications, acids. They live up to 194 degrees Fahrenheit heat for an hour. Freezing doesn't kill them. Nanocolloidal silver, radiation doesn't kill them. They easily circumvent and defeat our immune defense systems, and they cause cell apoptosis, cell death, and they alter RNA and DNA replication. So they mess with the blueprint of your body. So one thing I want to say is that the guy Kandahar that found this in modern times, he did have to have like a special filter that would capture these nanoparticles. So initially he had these cell cultures dying in his lab, so he was filtering through, trying to find what organism is killing his cell cultures, and he filtered through like the bacteria, the fungus, that kind of stuff became sort of excluded by process of elimination, but yet the cell cultures kept dying. So you had to get smaller and smaller filters to capture what might it be, and it turns out to be these nanobacteria, just like what was said over here about what Rife said, that they passed through filters capable of blocking any micro. And so Rife did most of his work in the 1930s. So that's a true statement in 1998 when Kahander found nanobacteria. Okay, where are we at now? So putting these thoughts together, there are 6 causes of heart disease. 6. And I collect causes of heart disease. I collect causes of disease, period. Some people collect roses or trinkets, or I also collect cars, by the way. But so seed oils, that's the vegetable oils. Okay, but we changed the nomenclature to seed oils. So that would be like canola and mazola, the corn oils, peanuts, whatever else seed oils that exist. They deplete vitamin K2 out of your body, and K2 is needed for unplaquing your arteries. And then another cause is sugar. Sugar glycates. Glycates is a verb. It damages your arterial walls. Sugar also glycates or damages or oxidizes LDL, which damages your arterial walls. And you can get simply chest pain and muscular weakness from insufficient heme iron. Heme iron comes from meat. That's the only source of heme iron is meat. And so I've seen this where I put people on more meat and their chest pain goes away, their angina goes away. And I experienced this myself. I had this deep chest pain back here, and I thought it was from the black mold from the old office. And when I started eating more carnivore diet, instead of eating red meat twice a week, I'm eating it twice a day. But within 3 days, that chest pain was gone. So it wasn't the black mold causing that deep chest pain, it was a deficiency of red meat, of heme iron. And it could also be other things with the red meat, like carnitine, CoQ10, other nutrients. You can have structurally weak arteries just from protein insufficiency. So I have a patient years ago, 5 years ago or more, probably more, having TIAs, mini strokes, and she was a vegan. And I convinced her, you got to eat meat, and she did, and she hasn't had any problems ever since. So the arteries can just be weak from not having enough protein. So you can have one or more of 4 blood clotting factors high. And I can list these off for you. I've said this many times in my videos. But there's 4 blood clotting factors that you can measure with the lab test. And here's what they are. Number 1 is lipoprotein A. Maybe I can write this up. Lipoprotein little a. Cysteine. Fibrinogen. And then C-reactive protein, CRP, C-reactive protein. And there's one, it's like $19 wholesale, and for $21 you can do high sensitivity C-reactive protein for the heart. So another test that's really important to do is called the coronary artery calcium score. I'll just put CAC. And that measures calcium deposits. Yeah, thanks for turning the camera. That measures calcium deposits in the soft tissue in your chest. And if your score can be 0, I've seen this twice now, where somebody's score is 0, which means no chance of a heart attack basically for 15 years, but they had 3 or 4 of these high, and they had a heart attack. And it's a blood clot. It's not a cholesterol plaque. It's not a calcium deposit. These are blood clots. And the blood clot, it could show up in your lungs. And they diagnose you with a lung condition caused by blood clots. Or it could be in your arteries, it could be in your brain, now you have a stroke, it could be in your heart, now you have a heart attack. But the problem is a blood clot. So I've seen this twice where this is 0, but people had heart attacks here. And one of these guys ended up in the hospital for a month. Never once did they tell him what his cholesterol levels were, because his cholesterol was normal. They did 3 scopes. They did the catheterization into his heart, looking 3 times, looking for the cholesterol plaque. And why did they do it 3 times? Because there wasn't any. Because it was a blood clot. But they still put a stent in him, and they probably should not have done that. And they should have run these 4. But why don't they run these 4? They don't run these 4 because there's no medication for these 4. You can only fix these with diet and supplements. You want the solutions right now? I'll tell you right now what the solutions are. Ketosis, 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 and this one is methylated B vitamin. So like there's a lot on the market. You can buy these at a health food store, methyl B, methylated B, something like that. Keto, 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 methyl. Okay. So the last one, the calcifying nanoparticles for causes for heart disease. And there's probably more, but I've collected 6 so far. Okay, here's some conditions that the calcifying nanoparticles have been detected and isolated in virtually all human organs and systems, and they do cross the blood-brain barrier. They've been seen as calcification or uncalcified forms in urine and kidney stones. It's like 97% of kidney stones have the nanobacteria in them. And I'm going to show you videos. You'll see the process. Okay, so calcification, kidney stones, bile and gallbladder stones, are atherosclerotic plaque in the arteries, cataracts. Cataracts is like your eyes turning to stone. Alzheimer's disease in the brain, vascular dementia, the arteries in the brain are turning to stone, heart valves turning to stone, kidney cysts, liver cysts. It's like the cysts are a version of a stone. Fibromyalgia. Cysts and fibroids go away with ketosis. So it's important that if you have nanobacteria, you have atherosclerotic plaques or stones, ketosis is important. It's important to do. Fibromyalgia, fetal bovine serum, it's in cows. Viral vaccines, it's in vaccines. It's contagious. Cancers, prostate stones, testicular stones. BPH is benign prostatic hypertrophy, prostatitis, eczema, skin conditions, psoriasis, scleroderma, atopic dermatitis. Brain sand is like a version of the brain turning into calcified, like pineal gland or something. So pineal and pituitary calcification, and many others. Many prominent researchers agree that pathological calcification is caused by calcifying nanoparticles, infections, wherever they are found in the human system. So this is a big deal, and it's really ignored quite extensively throughout medicine. And number one, because it's new, and number two, because it's new, I guess. All right, they directly cause or participate in many pathological events, like pathways, such as inflammation, endovascular and neovascularization. So that means, well, I'll get into it. Thrombosis, where a plaque gets thrown loose. Chronic autoimmune activation, so autoimmunity, it's a big deal. Cell proliferation, that's kind of like cancer. Altered cell functions, pathological calcification. Pathological calcification is like the disease process that's happening, making your joints stiff, as opposed to traumatic. So if you fall and you break your elbow, 20 years later it's calcified, that doesn't apply. Apoptosis, cell death, and subsequent tissue and organ system atrophy. They play an active role in the development of atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, heart valve calcification, kidney stones, and then polycystic kidney disease. So cyst, you see the pattern. Okay, these are my favorite solutions. So NanoBactX, this is a supplement that sort of put me down this path like 2 years ago. It's 1 pill per 2 pounds of body weight before bed on an empty stomach. So if you're 200 pounds, it's 10 pills before bed. And then when you do that, what happens is you get the main ingredient, which is called editate disodium dicalcium. I think I have that in the next. Yeah, right here. So editate disodium dicalcium, that's the last ingredient on this list right here. So what that is, it's a version of EDTA. EDTA is a medicine that's usually administered by IV, and it grabs onto chemicals and toxins and pulls them out of the body. So, but the IV EDTA does not do a very good job compared to this. So the IV EDTA will stay in your body for 15 minutes. This stays in your body for 12 hours. So you take this at night, and now you're detoxing for 12 hours, and then do it again every single night. And so this, if you're doing 8 per night, this will last a month. And I'll tell you the price right now, it's $199. I'm forced to sell it at that price. I can't go lower, I can't go higher. But if you do an IV EDTA, that's $200 or $300, and you do one a week. All right, so this is way cheaper and way more effective than IV EDTA. So there's many forms of EDTA. Editate disodium dicalcium is one, and I found on Wikipedia there's probably 12 or 15 different versions of EDTA. It does put calcium in your bones while taking calcium out of the soft tissue. So I had somebody quit this product because they were afraid of losing bone, getting calcium out of their bones. But it wasn't until today when I found out that it puts calcium in your bones. Okay, and then I have a couple of links right here. This right here is a really good compilation of the whole subject from PubMed, right there, from NIH, National Institutes of Health. And then this is the nanobiotechpharma.com website. They got 67 published research articles linked. So you can look up those research articles. So there's a lot of good information on this. So vitamin K2 is also very important in this whole protocol, and it's not in here, so you have to take an extra K2. And you take D3 with it. D3 is not in here. We have a product called K2D3 with high doses of both. And then the other part of the protocol is red meat in large quantities. Think pounds, not ounces. So for today, for lunch, I had 1.74 pounds of meat. That was my lunch. And I probably won't have dinner. So I go to Plum Market, and they got they just updated their hot bar. So they have this one section. Raise your hand if you've been to Plum Market over here. Yeah. So they have a section where they have like a nacho cheese bar, or with the nacho chips and the cheese, and they got meat. I just get all the meat. I just like empty out the whole bowl, and I put it in my bowl, and I try to eyeball it, and I've been working on this for the last few weeks. So I know how much I can eat. And sometimes they have chicken in there, but they put canola oil in the chicken, so don't eat the chicken. And then other days they'll have this kafta meatballs, which is lamb and beef combined. And that's really good. So today I had like 6 or 7 of those. So that's part of the therapy for ketosis. Okay, so moving on. Low carbs, less than 20 grams a day gets you into ketosis. And then my favorite supplements would be Saruta, Cataplex B or G, or maybe both B and G. So why is this? I'm going to show you this. Do you have the cameras turned this way? Okay. So we have causes of chronic disease, mechanisms, and symptoms caused by organ dysfunction. In order to get rid of the symptoms, you feed the organs. But you can't forget the causes, and you can't forget the mechanisms. So in the causes section, we have pathogens. That's these nanobacteria, among other pathogens. But in 1934, Standard Process came out with 2 supplements to specifically address lactic acidosis, the mechanism of chronic disease, Cataplex B or G. So that's why I put them up here. Now the mechanism, this is real quick, the mechanism of chronic disease is too much waste in the blood and not enough oxygen. So the Cataplex B and G clean the waste out of the blood. And there's other, this cleans waste out of blood. We have a lot of supplements that clean the waste out of the blood. Okay, but I love B and G to feed the liver. It's pretty holistic. And they have a lot of nutrients in there, including liver. But they remove the waste. And then the Saruta increases the oxygen in the blood. So here we have W for waste, O for oxygen. Too much waste relative to too little oxygen. Add in the B or the G, that brings us down. Add in the Saruta, that brings us up. Okay, so that's why I have those there. And then enzymes on an empty stomach. Nanobac TX has a lot of enzymes in there. And then people ask me all the time about serrapeptase. It's super popular on the internet because somebody's marketing it very well. There's a lot of other enzymes that actually work better than serrapeptase. And one in particular that I like to use is called Vascuzyme. It's a collection of enzymes. And we sell that. The company's Orthomolecular. That's the name of the company. So enzymes on an empty stomach, like before bed or first thing when you wake up. If you take it with food, it'll digest your food, which is fine, but we want to digest the unwanted proteins and garbage and inflammatory stuff related to calcification. Okay, so this is my current favorite solution for heart issues, calcification, what we're talking about. This is a protocol I put together 3 years ago, somewhere in there. And all of these are from Standard Process, except for the last one. And I have a guy who, he was doing his coronary artery calcium test, His score was 325. He started this protocol, and it dropped down to 300, which is really good. And then we switched it over back to this basically this protocol right here. And 3 years later, his score is 275, somewhere in there. So he got more relief from this one than he did from this one. That's my only, that is an N=1 experiment. That is my only experience I have comparing the older protocol with the new protocol. But they both work. So I have a number of people where their CAC is coming down, their coronary artery calcium score is coming down by doing this plus ketosis. And they're both important, both ketosis and this product. Okay. Now this is available online anywhere, and you don't have to be a patient to buy it. And it's sold right on their website too. So when I talk about supplements, people always online, they complain about how expensive it is, or I'm only trying to make money from supplements, that kind of stuff. Okay, but buy it wherever you want, and the price is set, not by me, but by somebody else. Okay, cool. Let's look at some videos. Here's this one. So I'm going to blow this up. There's no audio. I just didn't hook the audio. So it says calcified structures appear as large translucent particles. So you can see them right there. And you can see this dark, exterior wall. It's like an igloo. They make this wall for protection, and they live in here. Now, what they do is they make this, and they go dormant. And the dormant period is like 6 days. And what happens is and imagine that they're embedded. I think this is in a petri dish, but imagine they're embedded in your artery. Okay, and it's a calcified wall, and they're there for 6 days not doing anything. Well, by this time, your immune system is trying to revascularize that area. So an artery comes in and starts feeding blood to the nanobacteria, and what's in the blood that the nanobacteria love to eat, that's LDL cholesterol. So they need calcium and LDL. So then they get their food, and now they start to reproduce. They go into an active state where they live for 3 days before they replicate again. And then now that they're replicating again, they gather more calcium around them. They have more of the exudate around them. And they go through the cycle, 3 days, 6 days, 3 days, 6 days, 3 days, 6 days. And over time, there's just more and more buildup of the calcium. And that's why you can have, I'm going to take this down. There it is. So that's why you can have in an artery, here's the plaque. It's embedded in the musculature too. It's down in here. But why isn't it over here? How come there's not a plaque here, here, here? It's not everywhere. It's because the infection's right there. That's where it happened to be. That's where it happened to land. Just like you can have an infection in the ear, or versus the sinus here, or versus the hangnail that got infected. It's just where the bugs ended up landing. So, anyways, you get that cycle, the 3 day, 6 day cycle, right? So, and either way, that's an eternity, especially 6 days. That's a long time for these 25 nanometer particles to live before replicating. Okay, so this says first live video of calcifying nanoparticles. So they're moving around. They're underneath a microscope. It says decalcifying agent moves through the frame, dissolving the larger structures and releasing nanoparticles. So the largest, look at this one right here. I'm going to back it up a little bit. See, just watch this and watch this one. And see, it's a solid, stable, you could call it stable structure. But in comes this decalcifying agent, and then it dissolves. And this is dissolved now, and here's that nanobacteria right there. It's being released. Like that, so it gets all cleaned out like that.
This is blood?
I don't know, if this is in a petri dish, or I don't think it's blood because it would be a different color. But you get the idea. So nanoparticles are ejected from their calcified enclosures. So this is showing you again how that works. It's like home movies, isn't it? So the released particles are being washed through the fluid. What? Yeah, definitely drink water. Yep. Impacts of decalcifying agent on inorganic calcium phosphate crystals seen under a light microscope. So just picture like kidney stones. So look how pointed that is, like a kidney stone or gallstone. And it's being broken up from the EDTA or the editate disodium dicalcium. So you can consider the term pathological calcium. You can have too much calcium and in the wrong place. It's just as dangerous as mercury or cadmium or lead or tin or something like that. When you're talking about time and disease condition. So here's another video. Nanobacteria are self-replicating bacterial-like particles 100-fold smaller than common bacteria. They can be cultured in cell culture media. They've been found in human and animal blood. They're difficult to see with light microscopy. You have to get a special, you can get like an electron microscope, or there's two other microscopes that are more powerful. All right, let's see what this shows us. Nanobacteria colonies and biofilms produce calcium phosphate mineral, apatite, which makes them visible. Apatite is found in similar form in atherosclerotic plaques and in kidney stones.
So what was that decalcifying agent again?
Well, there's about 15 different versions of it. It's EDTA, or the one in this product is editate disodium dicalcium. So this is the guy that discovered it, Kahander from Finland. So there's colonies. Look, it looks like a stone, looks like sand, right? Colonies of nanobacteria wrap themselves up in calcium. So here's high magnification.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What keeps the bacteria from lodging into another spot? Is there something that kills the bacteria? How are you going to kill that bacteria besides releasing it from calcium?
You kill the bacteria with this EDTA, editate disodium dicalcium, or tetracycline works.
So you take an antibiotic of some kind?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that though. No, because then it wipes out all kinds of other things. You do the EDTA, disodium, do that stuff.
Well, the EPA
Right.
breaks the shell. Does that kill them?
You have to take that.
Yeah, that's a good question. My answer, not knowing too well, would be no. So that's why in this one you have vitamin C and grapeseed extract to help the immune system kill it.
That was like an antibiotic.
Right, so you break the calcium open, now it's released, then you got to kill it.
With oregano, maybe?
With
Oregano oil or
with grapeseed extract. Dr. Gary Mizo created this. He spent $20 million of his own dollars to figure this out and study it at various universities. So grapeseed extract is what he came up with. Hang on one second. And remember how this starts in the first place? Do you remember how it starts in the first place? What?
weakness?
Yeah, weakness, you're out of homeostasis. You did something wrong, or you had too much stress. You heard some really bad news. You know, people hear bad news and they're never the same from that point forward. You've heard these stories, maybe it's you. You know, like your mom dies and now you're never the same. Your health goes down, or you get fired from a job and you never recover. Okay, question?
Oh, when the bacteria when it's spread, and the bacteria spread out,
Yeah.
I mean, is that more dangerous than keeping them enclosed?
No, you want to get them out and you want to kill them and clean them out. So, and it can be measured. So with this coronary artery calcium score, I have about 6 people whose scores have dropped, meaning that the calcium is coming out of their tissues. And they're getting symptomatically better. You want to have improvement. Now, if the score stays at 0, or let's say the score is 400, and it stays at 400 for 30 years, and it's stable, that's really good too. So the plaquing is hardened and stable. It's a stable plaque. It's not going to go anywhere. You just don't want it to go up too fast. So if this goes up by more than 15% per year, that's dangerous.
So like a bump that doesn't do anything is okay.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Question?
So what this process do to the liver?
What does it do to the liver? It's the same thing from head to toe, no matter what the cell is or no matter what the organ is. It's the same process.
Just harden.
Hardening, stiffening of your body. Okay, let's go on with our home movie. So he's just showing samples. So nanobacterial igloos, homes of highly calcified forms. They're like igloos. So igloos butt off new nanobacteria. So they split. Remember, they're not alive, but they replicate. They self-replicate.
They're making a biofilm to protect themselves?
Yep, and then they reproduce, or they replicate. Isn't that crazy? We live on this planet and things like that happen. Okay. So here's a collection of, they start to form biofilm as a group. And that biofilm becomes more and more calcified. It's visible to the eye. This is not under a microscope. This is visible to the eye. It's resembling atherosclerotic plaque. Colors are caused by the thickness of biolayer. So the bigger it is, now you have more stuff involved. You have white blood cells that get involved. You know, like a plaque consists of 1% white blood cells, also known as foam cells. It consists of 4% saturated fat, 12% unsaturated fat, that's those seed oils, and 60%, I forgot the number, 60-something percent collagen, scar tissue, right? So the immune system's working on this and trying to deal with it. Just like when you cut your finger, now you get a scar there eventually. The body will scarify this plaque, these colonies, the biofilm. And then when that lets loose, that's a thrombus. So it glows. Apatite, A-P-A-T-I-T-E, that's a term commonly seen with stones, kidney stones, etc. I mean, why does it light up white like that? I mean, it's calcium. Calcium is white. Huh?
Like chalk?
Yeah.
What if you have high LDL and high cholesterol? If that's their food, what happens to people that have, if you get on this and you have high LDL, high cholesterol?
Well, you want to have a really strong, that's a very good question. You want to make sure your immune system is really strong to kill the nanobacteria, if possible. And number two, don't do dumb things with your health. You want to stay in homeostasis. Don't stay up without sleep for 2 days in a row. Don't drink a bunch of alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep your body in homeostasis. So we all have a propensity to some disease. And a lot of people, they got the propensity to have heart disease and a heart attack. So you can say, like, both my grandfathers died of a heart issue. And then, as far as I know, the other great-grandfather, he died in his late 40s from a heart issue. And my dad has slightly high blood pressure. I have him on Nanobac TX for a year, 3 a night for a year. So, and his blood test is doing good, huh?
It changed, it shifted the blood pressure?
I don't even know. Last time I saw him, I didn't talk to him about the blood pressure. So now he's taking a break from it. And anyways, am I answering your question? Yeah.
Why only 3?
Because he's a German farmer from Northwest Ohio. He doesn't like pills. Well, so the actual protocol would be the correct dosage per the body weight, and then after, let's say, a year, you can go to a maintenance dosage of 3, for example. Now, getting back to your question, some people have a propensity to have blood chemistry that does not correlate well or jive with arterial walls. And they just build plaques so fast, plus they're eating junk food and white bread and all that stuff, it's horrible. And they have a heart attack when they're 35 or 45, you know? So anyways, you can blame the LDL, but you know, if they were to take care of their body and their LDL stays high the whole time, you can live to be 80 and die from getting hit by a bus, right? But it's your actions that you do that cause this more than anything else, all right? But there are some unfortunate people that they're fit, they're thin, they exercise all the time, and they have a heart attack. But they're eating bread. There's a guy, Bob Harper, he was on The Biggest Loser. He was one of the trainers on The Biggest Loser. He had a heart attack. His lipoprotein protein A was high. I bought his book. I read his book. He blamed this. He blames his genetics. This is not a genetic thing. I mean, yeah, you could, sure it's genetic, but fix it with ketosis. So instead of going into ketosis, he writes a book called The Super Carb Diet, where you increase your carbohydrates even higher. It's just completely... Okay, back to this. So we're looking at these the nanobacteria, and then we're adding the nanobactx again. This video I just found today or last night. So you add it, and then they start to go crazy. So then they add another dose. I just found this. I don't even know if this is a good video. I just found it last night at like 11 o'clock. Huh?
Someone's probably narrating it, but we just don't know. You're saying.
No, I don't think there was a narration.
No, there isn't. I watched it today.
Oh, you did? Okay. So Dr. Gary Mizo was in trouble with the FDA about 5 years ago for saying things that were backed by research. He wasn't lying. He had clinical studies to show that what he was saying was the truth. He had the laboratory findings to show that what he was saying was the truth. And on my YouTube channel, I was going to interview him about 6 months ago. And we had the date set up. We're going back and forth by email, like, hey, I want to talk about this and that. And then it was supposed to be on a Monday. Well, he emailed me Sunday night and he said, sorry, I can't do it. My FDA lawyer said not to. Because he might say the wrong thing and he gets thrown in jail, right? For talking about a supplement. This is a supplement related to a heart condition, related to a disease. But, you know, it's all semantics. It's just words, right? So the point here is that calcium is a nutrient, and you can have too much calcium in a location. Then you take a nutritional supplement or a collection of them, and you change your diet, and it takes those nutrients where they're in excess and removes them and puts them somewhere else. Maybe you pee them out, maybe they go to your bones. So it's still all nutritional. Like all of medicine needs to be, 90% of medicine needs to be nutritional, right? But it just comes down to money and territory. Okay, this is a guy who, not this guy, but let me get this video moving forward. This right here, see it says Silicon Valley Health Institute? They only have like 39,000 subscribers. They have some of the best speakers. Like they're in Silicon Valley. I mean, they got brainy people there. They got MD researchers that, come on, internet. Anyways, so they had this guy named Eric Gordon, Gordan, talking about nanobacteria, talking about Gary Mizo, talking about Kahander, the discovery of it. And this guy, this is so annoying to me. Sorry, I just got to click out of there. This guy, Gordon, was saying that he's been doing IV EDTA chelation for years. He's an MD. And he goes, I don't see the reversal of disease with IV EDTA chelation. Now, the original form of this was like an enema suppository You had to put it up your butt. And then Gary Mizo put it in these capsules, and he designed the capsules to open up past the stomach so that the formulation would survive the acid of the stomach. But this guy Gordon was saying, like, now he's seeing the results that you would like to see by taking it orally or by taking it rectally. But we don't have to do rectally anymore because we have the oral version. Now there's a guy named Dr. Jim Roberts. He's a cardiologist in Toledo. Raise your hand if you know Jim Roberts. James Roberts. He's my cardiologist. When I had the black mold and my heart's going crazy, I ran down to him. I'm like sitting in his room like, something's wrong. It wasn't until months later when I found the mold, but I met him in the late 90s because I used to practice just a few blocks from him in Toledo. And so this guy Gordon, that previous video was talking about Dr. Roberts. So Roberts made another product with a similar EDTA type of nutrient. And I don't know the name of it, but like I said, there's about 15 different versions. So Roberts made his own. And other than that, I don't know of anybody else like promoting these solutions, talking about these solutions, like for people to take and to do. Like even Gary Mizo can't talk about it because he'll get thrown in jail potentially and lose his business. Okay, so there's all that. And look at that, it's 7:59. Ran out of things to say. Ask me some questions.
What side effects should I say?
What side effects of the... Sometimes when you take 10 or 12 before bed, it might hurt your stomach. That's the only side effect that I know of.
You said they don't open in the stomach.
Right, it still can hurt your thing, whatever is here. People talk about this. Yeah. This area, they say that this hurts sometimes, but that's rare. But I've had people where they take the supplement and it's working, and they can feel it working. And so they have reduced the dosage so they're not so affected by it. So like pain appears and then it goes away. At one location, then another location in the body. That's kind of it. Most people do really well with it. Yeah. Question?
Well, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the EDTA, I've read about it pulling other toxic metals.
Yes.
So what if I have mercury in my
Yeah, this pulls out the toxic metals too.
So is that bad if you shouldn't take this until you have your metal?
No, this pulls the heavy metals out too.
Does it hold on to them or screen them too?
Yeah, it holds on to them and yeah, it pulls them out. How's it going with these things? They're good still? Okay, good. Yeah, so detox. This is a standalone detox product.
And you said it's replacing the chelation process, which is the one.
It's replacing the IV chelation. It's better than the IV chelation.
People are doing the chelation through IVs for heavy metals and everything. This one is going to be covering the other.
What?
Interesting.
So I have several different detox protocols and supplements. I have this one, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 different detox protocols from different companies, and I just match them up with the patient. Like what they can handle. Do we start off slowly? Do we hit it hard right now? Like that kind of stuff. And this is one of them. This is one of my detox protocols. Good question. Yeah, Doug.
So does this get across the blood-brain boundary and even further to the retina and help detox there as well?
I've been told yes. And so Dr. Mizo talking about, what did I say for the eye? I said cataracts, right? Yeah, he said it takes a long time to clean that out, but yes, it would.
Glaucoma questions as well, just about blood flow.
He said it's good for glaucoma too. For the eye, it takes a long time. And for the, for the heart stuff, for some people it could be, easily more than a year, but just training it with the CAC. Good?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead.
Does it help with macular degeneration?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know how to answer that question.
Leonidas 61 asks, could tendinitis potentially be treated by nanobacteria?
Tendinitis? Yeah. Chronic tendinitis would be like part of the inflammatory process, as long as there's not a continual trauma to it. So, point of this is that you have some sort of pathological condition with the tendon, and then how do you get that part of the body beyond through the healing process? The healing process has a beginning, middle, and end. And if you have chronic pain, it's because you're stuck in the middle. And that inflammatory process isn't going away because the healing's not happening. So once the healing starts to occur, then the inflammation goes away, and then you have resolution of the healing cycle. So, pulling excess calcium out of tissue certainly is part of resolving chronic inflammation. There's a couple questions over here. Yeah?
I've got a question on K2, and if you do have calcium in your arteries and you're taking the K2 and it's supposed to mobilize calcium, I'm just wondering whether or not it's a good idea, because if the calcium mobilizes and blocks the artery, then you end up with a heart attack.
No, so the question is, if you take K2, it mobilizes calcium, you might get a heart attack.
That's what I was wondering.
Right, no, this is a dissolution of the area of the problem. It's not like you take a hammer and you bust it into pieces and they go flying through your arteries. It dissolves it like you saw on the screen. It's a dissolution of it, or emulsification, kind of. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, question?
What would be the solution to my rheumatoid arthritis?
To your who? Rheumatoid arthritis? I don't know. Rheumatoid arthritis is a bear. I've had success with it, and then I've had some cases no success. But it's worth a try. There's my answer for that. Question? Yeah?
I kind of started at the beginning. We couldn't decide if it was alive or dead, so I don't know if it can be killed. It's like trying to kill a rock. And then the other thing was, I wanted to ask you how you found it, where you found it, and how you have it in your little vial. Like, what is it?
Oh, the little vial is a homeopathic representation of it.
And but that came from that got diluted from some of the CNPs?
No, it's made from a computer. A guy in Oregon does that. This guy in Oregon makes all the test kits for all the people that do muscle testing, and so it's radionics. You know Tesla? Tesla was Nikola Tesla?
I know the name.
Yeah, so he was like a specialist in radionics, right? Not like necessarily our radio frequency or EMFs or electricity, radionics. So this is what this guy in Oregon says, that he's studied a lot of Tesla. He developed this computer specialized in radionics. So he makes these homeopathic vials.
So it matches the energy of the...
Right, exactly.
The other question was sort of like, how can you measure it or know if you have it, whether it's in your heart or your kidney or your lungs?
The nanobacteria?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lab. I looked it up last night, nanobaclab.com, and they don't exist anymore, but they used to exist, according to this guy, Eric Gordon.
So there's no way to measure it? Is what
There might be a lab now that measures it. So, but...
And you can find it by a muscle test, like whether it's in your kidney or...
Well, yeah, I do the muscle testing, but the truth is, if your CAC is high, or you have a chronic autoimmune condition that's not responding very well to many other things, you just start taking it. Or if you have heavy metals, right? Like this, you look at it clinically, and then give it 2-3 months and see what happens. Yeah.
If you actually had a kidney stone in your hand, could you look at it and tell if it was that, you think?
Well, the researchers said that 97% of kidney stones have nanobacteria. So yeah, you have a kidney stone in your hand? Yeah. I can tell because it's a kidney stone.
Yeah.
Oh, your first question was about if they're not alive, then how do you kill them? You got to break their process. You got to break their self-replicating process. You got to break their exudate and break their igloos.
Yeah, so they kind of die and come back alive and die in their...
They go dormant,
Yeah.
and they come back. They go dormant, yeah.
And do they live in the gut as well, or
They live wherever they want. They've been found on asteroids, like on meteorites that have landed on the Earth. They're out in space. They're in the water. They're everywhere.
It feels like we might just be made up of them, you know, that it's stardust.
Something like that. Yeah, it's good. Another question?
Is it a research, or is it which study, not to study how the more it is?
Like a cyst might have more?
I mean, a state, which study, you know, not to study how the more it is classification.
Wait, what would have more of it?
What the state?
What state?
Is it research on more?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Asking.
The state of the body.
No, I mean, in that state, okay. New York has more.
Oh, I have no idea. I think that's a sort of a Lyme disease sort of a question. Is it? It's like in every person. These are things that are everywhere. They're everywhere, but you just want them to be dormant. You know, not like thriving.
What do you think about MSM?
I think it's a form of sulfur that is good.
I mean, as far as possibly softening the calcium?
No. Question? Yeah, go ahead.
So, I passed the 7 millimeter kidney stone, and it was 80% calcium oxalate, 10% or 15% uric acid, but it was a small percentage protein, and nobody could tell me why it had protein in it. I believe it's only supposed to have calcium oxalate or uric acid. And so I'm just wondering, why would I have protein in my stone? Nobody can tell me. I think the urologist would tell me that, but.
I don't know how to answer that either.
If you eat a lot of eggs and.
Well,
No, it's not that. I mean, it's like, why is there, if you look, I don't know, it's like, why do you have worms in your garden? It's just part of nature. I just see it to be like that.
So it's hard for me to figure out what to eat, because I love red meat. I eat red meat all the time, but
Yeah.
I also get uric acid.
Okay.
So what do you do when you have kidney stones that are both, and, sometimes I get it's almost like a gout pain a little bit.
So you're doing low carb, right?
I'm supposed to be, yeah.
Okay, so uric acid goes up with high carb, right? Gout is an issue of eating high carb meals. So King's.
So maybe I'm understanding that wrong, because I thought it was like animal protein, and that's why
No.
I'm sad
Listen.
about that.
So listen. So in the 1500s, the kings got gout, and they would lay in bed, and their toes would be up, and the weight of the blanket was too much for their toes. What did kings eat that peasants couldn't eat? Sugar. The peasants had animals, and they had plants, but the kings could afford spices and sugar and desserts. So maybe you have elevated uric acid from your previous diet from before. And there is a guy online that was saying that his uric acid completely normalized by eating just carnivore. Now you can eat meat and then have a flare-up of your pain, and you get the gout pain, so that is an issue. So this could be maybe where something like this can play a role in reducing the amount of uric acid and crystals in your body. Now up here with my older protocol, I got the fast food, and that right there too could potentially help with that situation.
Dr. Amanda is helping me with that. I take fast food for the kidney stone.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So the kidney stone is made out of uric acid plus other things, the minerals and stuff. It's the same process, right? But in the meantime, don't kill yourself by eating red meat with a gout pain, okay, while you're fixing the original situation.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, good. All right, let's end this. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.